So, Keter Sanctuary's main unit, Apex Ruler Bastion. The weird Pegasus riding Shadow Paladin, Royal Paladin looking guy. So, his effect is during your turn, all of your grade 3 units get power plus 2,000 on the Vanguard. And then auto Vanguard at the end of the battle that it attacked. If you drive checked, reveal a grade 3, cost, discard a card from your hand, choose one of your rear guards, stand it, and gets power plus 10.
This is the most Kagero, not Kagero deck I've seen. That has nothing to do with its Sanctuary.
No. I think the better way to describe this is I did not know Azure Kaiser decided to switch clans.
Well, exactly. But it just deals so much with grade 3. But yes, Azure Kaiser would definitely be the better example. It's just that restanding rear guards. It just reminds me of restanding specifically grade 3s or using grade 3s. It just reminds me of just both Overlord stuff, and it's just when you hear restanding, you get PTSD from any Overlord match you had when you were a young lad.
I think this is more like screams Morikawa, like back in the day, Spike Brothers and a bunch of grade 3s.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The Wolverine hair man would be proud.
Yeah, the tragedy is, and if I've made it voiced on the YouTube channel before, but I have not watched the show. But through you guys, I've learned a lot about it, and the name Morikawa has stuck with me in my brain. I don't know what he looks like, but you say Morikawa, I know exactly what you mean.
I mean, that's the best part of the original series. I think that Morikawa is like the one standoutish character that if you don't watch the show, you at least know who Morikawa is if you play the game.
Exactly.
But I think it's interesting that they're taking their a grade 3 focus approach, because the support grade 1 and 2 have effects that when you ride from the ride deck on top of each other, you're pretty much revealing grade 3s that either plus to the board or plus to your hand. So it's obviously going to be a grade 3 centric deck.
Feels like as a Bermuda player, it feels familiar. We got a grade 2 that does a kind of similar thing of just, hey, do a thing when I'm placed, and Vanguard, Rearguard, what's the top deck, call it. And I think it's great that they took a special focus with this reboot of, now we know what the non-unit cards, what are they called?
Like the Cray Elemental?
No, the
orders.
The orders, yes. I had just blanked out on what the name for those are. They're still so new to me. I run no decks with orders, so eventually I will be running decks with orders, so I will understand the word better. But I love how they are taking into mind that, hey, there's orders, and they're going to be a mainstay mechanic in most every deck and every nation now moving forward. So we have to keep those in mind. Like, what if I reveal it? What do I do? It's like, well, if you do, you don't. You can go into Soul, kind of like back in the day if you revealed a trigger, like with Bermuda. It's like, because the clause of you can either call it to Rearguard or put it in Soul. Now it's just like, just put it straight in Soul. Otherwise, you're calling it Bud. It was a bit of a drawback, but,
But hey, I mean,
it's early on.
Like I said, everybody's going to have their own nation-specific order, and of course, I'm pretty sure the set's going to do it too, so it's going to be interesting. But the weird thing is about this, though, is, yes, like Bermuda, you do have a lot of grade 3 effects that work with grade 3s, but your grade 3s do not have shield like Bermuda gives.
Correct. So
you're really
putting yourself
living on the edge.
You absolutely reminds you of doing the Brave mechanic. You're living life on the edge. It's definitely a Keter Sanctuary thing. They're adopting Brave in a different approach. You have a hand, but how useful is that hand?
See, I have the theory that whenever the booster comes out, or the order, most people are thinking that the order is going to do something to give shield. If they're in your turn and then in your opponent's turn. I have the theory that a lot of these, main booster is going to have effects of grade 1s and 2s that count as grade 3s when you drive check them or in your hand.
That would be very nice.
So that way you're not flooding your deck with grade 3s and you can still have an early game.
Kind of like Mega Colony has them with our really fancy boy with the hat. He's always a grade 3, so it just makes life convenient when you're searching and don't want to whiff. Plussing cards for free is nice. And this deck needs grade 3s to show. That would be very helpful for them strategy, because keeping a hand with 3 grade 3s is really difficult. And that's not including if they're your main unit. You may have the Stride deck, but if you want to go, or the Ride deck, but if you want a Persona Ride, you have to have those on top of having 3 others. The sadness is if they don't get support like that for their grade 1s and 2s to be grade 3s, or their non-trigger grade 0s to be grade 3s, then they're going to suffer by having to run a excess amount of grade 3s and also having to ride. Your hand your hand's nothing, and you're vulnerable to everything.
Yeah, and especially if you're riding up to grade 3, because I think the grade 2 requires specifically 3 grade 3s in your hand to
That's
activate.
rough.
You're gonna really put yourself on the spot. You're either taking a lot of hits early, or I don't know. You're just taking a lot of hits early.
It's a blessing that the ride deck does exist. Otherwise, this deck would be completely garbage.
Oh yeah, because
if without the ride deck, you have to keep terrible hands to make sure your effects work. Otherwise, you're always catching up. And when you're catching up, you're top decking, and it's really bad to be top decking and wanting grade 3s.
Oh, I'm calling it now. Watch this happen. So somewhere, somebody's going to make a build of this where it's going to be nothing but grade 3s, because your ride deck fixes your ride targets. So you can always have your grade 1 and 2 and 3.
So you just suffer through the first 2.
So you just keep discarding your grade 3s from your hand or from your ride deck, and you just plop your hand down with nothing but grade 3s and drive check nothing but grade 3s.
Exactly. It's like, who needs boosters? Like, maybe they'll sprinkle like a playset of the grade 1s and 2s support. Just like at least the grade 1, because it gives a good effect of boost of giving your Vanguard +5, which stacks really hard. Like if you had 3 of them, that's +15. That's a lot, because it's doubled its attack, plus it has a continuous 2, and but you're essentially running a deck with extra triggers because of the Vanguard's effect. It's like, oh, did I drive check a grade 3 instead of 2 triggers?
Oh well, discard a card. Which that's another thing. The weird part is that you had to discard a card, so you technically minusing the standard rear guard.
But in a format where stand triggers don't exist, I think that means a lot, though.